Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about Legion pigments, how to value them and what to do with them. I was pretty excited to find out it was going to be possible to mass mill items in Legion. However, we have a lot of choices of items we can mill for pigments. Okay, so once you open up your inscription window, you can see that there's a lot of different options of different items that you can mill to get your various Legion pigments. The problem is you don't really know what you're supposed to mill or what's the best item to mill, because that's really what we need to get to is what's the best item to mill to get your different types of pigments. But if you look at the profit numbers here for TSM, it's a little confusing, but these numbers here are quite off. So just for this section, ignore all these profit numbers, and we need to figure out what's the best items here to mill to get the pigments that we want at the cheapest possible prices. So for all of those options of all those different items that we can mill, the only way to know for sure what's the best thing to mill is to collect a lot of data on all the various options, and then from there determine what's the best, what's going to give you the best results at the cheapest price. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've milled a bunch of everything on that list that we just went through and collected a bunch of data, and I have it set up in a way to make it a bit more user-friendly for you guys to figure out what you guys should be doing based on what things are selling for on your server. Now I have a link to this Google Docs sheet in the description, so don't worry about that, it's there for you. And once you go to this link, you will see my sheet here, and although you can't edit it from here, you can easily just go make a copy for yourself, and then from that copy that you have made for yourself, you can edit it all you like. And to make a copy, you just go up to File, and then go to Make a Copy, and it's simple as that. Keep in mind, I will be continually updating this sheet with more data over time, so make sure you check back every few weeks for improvements. So first we'll look at the Sallow Pigment tab at the bottom of the sheet, and here down at the bottom you can see there's a bunch of different tabs. For this video we're just going to be focusing on these two tabs, and I'll be making other videos that are going to cover the other tabs. So here you'll see I've got a little table at the top, one where I have my own personal values placed for each pigment and the seed, and the next block for market value of these items on my server, and then the final block for the average price of these items across all EU servers. This is just to give me an idea of how my price preferences compare to my server's numbers and the overall across all of EU. The only section here you probably would want to update is the Your Personal Value section, which is highlighted in green. The other two blocks just ignore, that's more just for me, or if you really want to, you could update it for your server, but it's really not necessary. If you are new to this process and you aren't quite sure what numbers to put in that little green box, I've got you covered. The first step would be to figure out how much the roseate pigments, the seeds, and the fellwort are on your server. If you have TSM, you can just hover your mouse over the items in your bags or on the auction house, and all this information will be right there for you. You can also go to their website, tradeskillmaster.com, or go to the underminejournal.com to get all this information. So generally for me, across all the servers that I play on, the roseate pigments are 20 gold across the board, and the seeds are about 4 gold each for me. I imagine you guys are somewhere similar to those price points. So if you find that your roseate pigments and your seeds have slightly different prices than what is already in here, you can easily adjust that. So anything that's colored in green is usually an indication that that's a spot for you to change your prices. So say on your server roseate pigments weren't 20 gold, they were actually say 15 gold, and your seeds weren't 4 gold, they were in fact say 5 gold. You change it to be whatever it is on your server, and then all the prices down here will adjust based on the two numbers that you put in here. Now I've gone ahead and I put back my roseate pigment to 20 gold and my seed back to 4 gold because that's the price that it is on my server. And then I have this lovely little chart here that I can use to find out what price I need to buy my fellwort up to get my sallow pigment at the desired price. And the reason I have it done this way is because I find fellwort, the price of it changes quite a bit on my server. It goes up and it goes down quite a bit. So this is always changing, and I don't want to have to calculate prices every single time there's a little shift. So I find this chart is very, very valuable. I can just come and have a quick look and see what price fellwort is selling on my auction house, and then I can just quickly find out exactly what it's costing me to produce my sallow pigment, and I don't have to waste time doing any calculations. Okay, in case it's not painfully obvious here, what it's basically telling you is if you go to your auction house and fellwort is 150 gold, then it's telling you that it's costing you 65 gold to make your sallow pigment. If fellwort is 100 gold on your auction house, then it's going to be costing you 42 gold to produce your sallow pigments. If you buy fellwort up to 80 gold on your auction house, it's going to be costing you 33 gold to make your sallow pigment. And that, of course, is with these prices here put in. As these prices change, all these numbers down here change. So the first step is obviously going to be you put in the numbers here for your server for these two, and then all of this stuff spits out, and then you have a chart that you can quickly eyeball and determine what it's costing you to produce your sallow pigments based on the fluctuating price of fellwort on your server. In case you haven't noticed, if you happen to need lots and lots of sallow pigments, then fellwort is what you should be milling. Now, if you need roseate pigments, what you should be milling, we're going to be covering that in the next section. So now it's time to check out the other tab at the bottom, Roseate Pigment. So here I spent a lot of gold milling everything that could be milled just for data. It was very painful for me, so I hope you really appreciate it. So the first column here is Dreamleaf and all the data associated with Dreamleaf. And then over here we have Aethriel. This is another one that we can mill and all the data with that one. And then here in the middle is Foxflower, which you don't want to be milling. This is another herb here also that you don't want to be milling. And this one here, these seeds, you definitely don't want to be milling these. And Starlight Rose, very, very painful to get this data, but you definitely don't want to be milling these. You need to get all of these extremely cheap down to a gold each, which is obviously not going to happen. So all of that stuff is naturally just excluded. So the only thing that you can really use to get your roseate pigments are these first two columns are the only thing that's reasonable in terms of price point for getting your roseate pigments. So it's pretty clear that in nearly all circumstances, Dreamleaf is the best herb to mill if you need tons of roseate pigments. However, if Dreamleaf happens to be really expensive on your server and Aethriel is really cheap, Aethriel could sometimes work out as an alternative. So keep it in mind as a backup plan, but most of the time it's always going to be Dreamleaf. All of the other information to the right of these first two columns you need to ignore because you're never going to be milling that stuff. Again, this whole tab is exactly the same as the previous tab. Anything that's highlighted in green is a prompt for you to change some numbers or put in your numbers that you need to put in. So we did figure out on the previous tab what it was costing us to produce our sallow pigment. So you would just put your number in here and then your seed number you would put in there. And then from these two numbers, this whole chart is going to change to give you the numbers of what it's costing you to produce your roseate pigments on your server based on the price of Dreamleaf. So with these numbers plugged in here, if you were buying Dreamleaf up to 30 gold on your server, it would be costing you 35 gold to produce your roseate pigments. If you were buying Dreamleaf up to 20 gold on your server, it would be costing you 21 gold to produce your roseate pigment. So based on the fluctuating price of Dreamleaf on your server, you can quickly and easily find out what it's costing you to produce your roseate pigments. Now, if you happen to be in a situation where Dreamleaf is really expensive on your server and you just want to use Aethriel herb because it's cheaper and it works out better for you, again, you just stick your prices in over here and all of these charts are going to adjust their prices based on what you pop into these two blocks right here. So for Aethriel, you would just go down and you would use the chart the exact same way that I've just explained previously. It's the same deal. Okay, so now you have lots of roseate and sallow pigments. What the heck do I do with this stuff? So first off, the easiest thing that you can do, of course, is just sell it on the auction house. You can sell these pigments really, really easily. You're going to have a lot more success selling the sallow pigments than you will the roseate pigments. At least that's been my experience. But you can always try to sell both and determine what works best for you on your server, and then you just adjust to meet your server's demands. Many people won't really know how to determine what it's costing them to produce these pigments because it's not really clear when you look at your inscription profession window. When you see that you can mill this stuff, you have no idea what it's costing you. The only way you're going to know is with the data that I have provided you in the spreadsheet or coming up with the data yourself. So there's going to be lots of people on your server that would want to make gold with this process, but they just don't have the data and they're not really sure what to do. So it gives you an upper hand and helps you with resetting markets, mini resetting markets, and helping to sell this stuff because you know what it's costing you to make this now. I have a lot of success doing mini resets of fellwort and sallow pigments. You guys should definitely give it a try. However, I don't really bother with resetting roseate pigments. I just sell them when they're nice and expensive and they give me a good amount of profit, but I don't do any resets on those types of markets. So that's something you guys should consider and have a look at and make yourself some profit. I also feed a lot of my pigments into Dark Moon cards and trinkets, so let's take a minute and look at this. So if we go back to the Sallow Pigment tab, I have a little section there for the Dark Moon stuff. Although most of this sheet assumes that you have rank 3, this is one exception where I just wanted to see the price difference for the different ranks on the trinkets because I was really honestly just curious. So again, you'll notice that there's green boxes here. So again, that's an indication for you guys to pop your prices in for these different materials. And then once you pop your prices in, this is all going to automatically adjust. So you can see that the cost for anyone who has rank 1 is going to be extremely expensive to make your trinket, which you're not really going to be doing. And then rank 2, it's a bit cheaper, but still too expensive. And rank 3 is quite cheap. And remember to take into account your 5% auction house cut, which you're going to be setting up in TSM anyway, but just to have here as an eyeball so you can see what it's costing to produce your trinkets. Now, I have done extremely well selling these trinkets ever since Legion came out. It's made me a large amount of profit. It's still making me pretty good profit. It's certainly less, but it's still pretty juicy. And any excess cards I have, I just sell them raw in the auction house. The other thing that you can do with these pigments are glyphs and Vantis runes, which do very well for me. Remember, you can set specific prices for these pigments in TSM, so you can be much more competitive in your prices if needed. You will be producing a lot of this stuff at a cost a lot lower than the auction house value of these mats. So if you wanted to go in and put a hard fixed number in for your pigments, you can do that very easily. So you could go into Sallow Pigments. And if you wanted TSM to value your Sallow Pigments at a specific price, say if you knew that you were producing them and it was only costing you 60 gold to make your Sallow Pigments, you could do that and that would make your prices much more competitive. You could do the same thing with the Roseate Pigment as well. And you could go in and if you knew that it was costing you 20 gold, you could do that. And then it would base its crafting off of that stuff. And for any of you that might not have inscription, including those of you who do have inscription, you can easily flip Felwort on the auction house. It is needed in a large quantity by auction house players for inscription, to make the jewel crafting saber's eyes, the alchemy infernal alchemist stones to make obliterum, and a variety of other things. So if you've never looked at this market, go to your auction house, have a look, and see if that's something you want to try. Okay, that's it, you guys. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful for you. Just as a side note, I'm going to keep working on getting more data for the rest of this Google Doc sheet for the rest of the Legion professions, and I'll be making videos for sections once the sections are complete. Thanks for watching. Until next time.